from Daily Trust. Ramsey will take us through the Daily Times next.
Right, from the Daily Trust to the Daily Times.
Right.
Okay, on the Daily Times newspaper this morning, we have some very juicy headlines, and I will be starting with the big story for the day. The big story says Nigeria's GDP grows 3.46% in Q3 2024, boosted by services sector. I think one of the things that a lot of Nigerians are looking forward to is how the economy will rise again. Because the dwindling nature of the economy has posed a lot of worries in the hearts of Nigerians, looking at the level of hardship, what Nigerians are really going through. But then, one of the things that I will always say, and I'll keep saying, is how do we get this to translate into Nigerians having a positive feeling of, yes, if there is a growth in our GDP, we should feel it when we get to the market. We should feel it when we want to board vehicles. We should feel it when we want to buy fuel. We should feel it when we want to buy food items. This is what it means. And so whatever it is that is happening, because some persons have actually said, well, this policy is translating into something positive. But these are things that are only noticed, by the economists who are studying the economy. The average Nigerian don't even understand that language. The only language the average Nigerians understand is, all right, the hunger has reduced to a minimal level. I can now at least feed twice a day. All right, I think that's what it means. So whatever happens, let's make sure all this growth results to something very significant that Nigerians can feel. More headlines still coming from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Dele Momodu exposes $23 million bribe in 2023 primaries. 2023 primaries. This is 2024. All right. I don't know.
That was in the PDP.
In the PDP.
He actually said a particular aspirant was giving out, I think he mentioned $30,000. To delegates. Of course, even the
he didn't mention names.
No, of course, he didn't mention names. He said a particular aspirant was giving out $30,000 in 2023. That was actually in 2022 because PDP had to do primaries and all of that. And then he talked about well, you see, let's talk about, first of all, how many delegates you have in a party like PDP. PDP is a mega party in the real sense of the word. So, question is, how many delegates did he make these, if you like, gifted this money to? All right, what does that?
I think I like the way you're calling it.
Yes,
gifted.
He gifted them.
Right.
Yes, he gifted them. Right. That's how one governor one time lost election, went back to the chiefs in his party, that's the leaders. They said, look, you guys deceived me. I remember I gave you one SUV. Please, can I have the keys?
Oh my God.
I remember I gave you XYZ. Can I have it back? So he was asking for a refund of everything he had given out because it's more like, if you like, quid quo pro, as they say in Latin. So you do for me, I do for you. So for everything I give you, there is something I'm getting back in return. And that's why most times I'm very concerned when you hear people say things like, you owe me one. All right, politicians know how to play that game a lot. All right, especially for those who are very conversant with 48 laws of power. That's a story for another day. But the point I'm trying to make with all of these is, you're asking yourself, why is Chief Dele Momodu coming up with this revelation at the time? Particularly when you realize that he himself is a member. I don't want to say chieftain because I think we have even abused that term, chieftain, in this country. He's a member of the PDP, unless he's saying that in recent times he moved. But last we checked, he is a member of the PDP. So what is the motivation for making this revelation at this time? Is it some handwriting on the wall that you want to move? Or is there somebody you are, trying to rail against? Because 2027 is coming, everybody is trying to do their thing. Just yesterday, for example, we learned that Otumba Segun Sowunmi has now rolled out his own initiative. He calls it the alternative. For those who, for starters, Otumba Sowunmi is the chieftain of the People's Democratic Party. All right, he's a strong ally of former Vice President, and many times a candidate of the PDP in the presidential race, talking about Atiku Abubakar. All right, he started something in that regard. He didn't mention the PDP, he didn't mention any, no partisan affiliation so far. He says it's the alternative. All right, so are we seeking an alternative to what the APC is presently dishing out to Nigerians? Are we saying there needs to be an alternative? What's the idea? So the point is, everybody is coming up with their own initiative, everybody is driving their own front, politically, socially, and otherwise. Most of them, let's not just say all of them, aimed towards 2027. Meanwhile, even within the APC, you are finding alignments and realignments here and there. You are finding alliances and counter-alliances as to who is going to be with, stand with President Tinubu into 2027. Who is going to find an alternative going into 2027. But we must ultimately realize that there is life beyond 2027. All right?
That's true.
Some people will still be here standing, whether they're politicians or not. So the question is, are we putting in the same energy to fix bad federal roads? A government just left office recently, and the whole time he would just put billboards, signboards on the road to say this road is, we apologize, this road is not for, I'm not quoting word for word, I'm just saying this, a paraphrase. But essentially, the message on the billboards would read, this is a federal road, it's not the fault of the state, blah, 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 blah. So are we putting in this energy? One time I was discussing with someone, I said, how is it that politicians will start a meeting at 8 p.m., and run into 4 a.m., right? For the love of heaven, that's an 8-hour meeting. Do we have meetings like this to discuss healthcare system, to discuss supports for vulnerable groups, whether people living with disabilities, with widows, with orphans, with young girls? Look at the numbers when you talk about out of school children. The bulk of them, Ramsey, are girls.
They are girls.
Who is having a conversation around that? Who is holding an 8-hour meeting to discuss this? The president, the ministers, the governors, the legislators from the federal, state to the local. Who is talking about these issues? All right, and then you say, okay, let's talk about extreme poverty. Look at what the numbers are showing us in terms of people who live within the bracket of what is today called extreme poverty. All right, the IMF and World Bank will call it multi-dimensional poverty. All right, we keep adding millions of people into that bracket, and we don't hold 8-hour meetings to discuss these issues. Instead, what we do as politicians is when these reports come in, we wave them off with our left hand because they don't favor us, they don't support our narrative. They don't align with the rhetorics that we sell. But when the numbers look good, we say, well, this is what we've been doing the whole time. This is what we promised when we're campaigning. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, is now saying that, well, we have been able to, the GDP has moved up by 3.46%. And the next thing you know now is Mr. Wale, Minister of Finance, will come out and say, we told you this when we were campaigning, that this was what we're going to do. But when the NBS, the same NBS that is Nigerian, 100% Nigerian, is indigenous, it's called the National Bureau of Statistics, it's Nigerian, comes up with a report that the government and politicians find damaging, we turn our backs and we go on TV, we go on social media to condemn. You see, no country, especially at the turn of the 21st century, will make progress if you do not believe in statistics, in data, and in numbers. Countries who progress across board in all aspects of human endeavor are those who have the courage to trust the numbers, believe in the numbers, crunch the numbers, and then plan based on the numbers.
Because without the number, you can't even plan.
Exactly.
Because I was telling someone, I said, when was the last time we even conducted census in this country?
Well, that was some 18 years ago.
18 years ago. So most of the things the government do is based on assumption. We can't really get it right. If the statistics is not there, then when a statistics is being put out and it doesn't favor a particular set of people, they begin to come against it.
Right.
But when it favors them, they want to blow the trumpet. That, like you just talked about, there's some growth. Now, this supposed growth, I have not felt it yet. It has not put food on my table. And I know every Nigerian will be thinking the same direction.
Right.
Talking about the People's Democratic Party, what about the House? You are an alternative. Is the House in order? How many people, how many Nigerians still believe in the People's Democratic Party? Because they were also in power for several years.
16 years.
16 years.
Right.
Okay, 16 years. and this is APC that we have here, that you can see handwriting on the wall in black and white, that you don't even need a magician to help you read. You don't need to go to school before you can read the handwriting on the wall. So many things happening, and this preparation for 2027 shouldn't take attention from doing the necessary things, because first of all, the people need to be alive before they can even vote for anyone or support anyone who wants to get into a leadership position. All right, I think that's it right there from the statement coming from Dele Momodu. Some few headlines are still coming from the Daily Times before I wrap it up right here. This one says INEC counters PDP governors on rigging claims. It will always happen after every election. You know what we're talking about, because not everyone is satisfied with elections in Nigeria, even though we know the free and fair nature of it is not 100% sometimes. Some persons, especially the oppositions, would have to say so many things, but then in every criticism, there is something to take out of it.
That's right.
So, PDP are the ones saying that. Then Atiku's camp accuses Bwala of betrayal for personal gain. And then finally from here, Vice President Shetima advocates tech-driven approach to tackle terrorism. I think that's so interesting. If we can take on tech, right, because this is a developed country, and of course a developing country, a third world country, and as it is, if we can imbibe tech, if we can at least do something in that area, the insecurity we're crying about today, it will become a thing of the past. Because okay, what about the area manned vehicles, the drones, okay, that can fish out terrorists from every hideout? What happens to our cameras? What happened to our gadgets? You know, sometimes you'll be forced to ask certain questions, what the people concerned are doing. But then, if the vice president is coming out this morning to say, to advocate for tech-driven approach to tackle terrorism, I think he should know the right people to talk to as far as that advocate is concerned. And if it is being embraced in this 21st century where the world is now a global village, it will be a thing that would help the nation as it has to do with insecurity. Well, that's going to be the size from the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
Thank you, Ramsey. Let's turn to Nigerian news direct quickly. We'll begin with the star story for you. Nigeria's GDP grows by 3.46% in Q3 2024, driven by services sector. That headline has got 4 riders with it, and the first one reads, as Tinubu assures of greater economic output. Our GDP records slowest growth in 2024. Unemployment rate slows to 4.3% in Q2 2024. Another piece of good news there. Nigeria faces increased economic risks amid rising inflation, poverty. That's a report too. All of these details await you on page 11 of today's issue of the Nigerian News Direct. What more have we got here? Oil production statistics, that's your kicker. NUPRC quoted figures for average production, not peak production. That's according to NNPCL here. Midterm anniversary, another kicker. We will achieve in 4 years what others achieve in 8 years. Governor Adeleke pledges. That's the governor of Osun State. Recapitalization. CBN extends deadline for BDCs to June 2025. That's a bit of ample time. Lagos 2025 budget scales second reading. Why federal government is still borrowing despite increase in revenue. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, provides explanation on page 11 of Nigerian News Direct today. Let's rush quickly to The Guardian, where Ramsey has all of those headlines for you.
All right, on The Guardian newspaper this morning, let's see how far it's going to guide us. Okay, the big story right there, which is the star story right here, says GDP defies inflation shock as more Nigerians take informal jobs. Details you can find on page 6. Sometimes when you don't have an alternative anymore, you tend to do whatever it is that is available, because Nigerians are hungry, as a matter of fact. This one says federal government defends borrowing as NNPCL, FRS Customs surpass 2024 target. Details on page 3. This one, the kicker says a minimum wage across river workers embark on strike. Rejects government's plea. Details you can get on page 7. This one says NNPC defends output amid confusion over oil production data. Details on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. NBA slams EFCC boss for accusing lawyers of money laundering. Details you can find on page 3. That is interesting. You can actually pick a copy so you go through it yourself. Edwin Clark, the Cross Rivers political crisis, false lawmakers defection. Why won't they defect? All right, this one says despite challenges, Nigeria's economy grows by 3.46%. You can see that this is coming in almost all the papers this morning. That's to tell you of how eager Nigerians are to see the economy of the nation pick up, because people have gone through so much and are still going through so much and would want to get out of it. So that's what it means this morning. And finally, from the Guardian newspaper this morning, Discourse recalls 54.2 billion naira revenue shortfall in September. Okay, that's Discourse. Well, I don't know, but then I don't know how much power you have in your area, whether you are in grade A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I don't know. But then I think this is one sector that needs to be looked into very well. And that's going to be the size of the headlines from the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, let's turn to The Nation as we wrap up now. We'll begin with headlines above the name mast for you. One here with a picture of a senior lawyer. It's a Sagi. It says, legal giants OK Supreme Court's voiding of National Lottery Act. Then another one reads, Shetima Abbas, First Lady, intensify push for gender equality. Federal government requires MDAs to accept youth corps members. Lagos House Committee gets 1 month on budget estimates. What else? One just beneath the nameplate. Military launches joint operation against ESN IPOB. Details on page 6. Airstrikes kill terrorist commanders, also on page 6. Big story reads, Tinubu excited, experts optimistic over 3.46% Q3 GDP growth. Then there are two riders with the headline, non-oil sector is key driver, more should be done to boost real sector. And then here, right-hand corner, bottom, Southeast holds 268,000 IDPs in 158 camps. That's quite some number. Why federal government is borrowing by Edu Bagudu FIRS boss. Forensic audits of NNPCL's 8 trillion naira debts claim ongoing. And lastly, at the foot of the paper, Rivers, that's your kicker. Amewuna-led assembly moves to repeal Commission of Inquiry Law 1999. All right, then that's all we have for you on the papers today. This is where we're going to take a break, everyone. When we return, we'll bring you the Global AM news. After that, we'll put our conversations this morning on the road for you. Thank you so very much for staying with us here.
Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Anthony Momodio. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Niconsat. President Bola Tinubu has called on the legislature to put first increased funding and reforms for the nation's space program. Tinubu made the call when he declared open the 25th anniversary of the National Space Research and Development Agency at the State House. He emphasized the role of a well-funded and empowered space sector in driving Nigeria's development and ensuring the nation's country remains a leader in Africa's space industry. Represented by the Science and Technology Minister Uche Nnaji, the president also highlighted the need for enhanced support to solidify Nigeria's position in the fourth industrial revolution and foster greater international engagement in space exploration. The air component of Operation Hadinkai has destroyed the terrorist food depot and killed several insurgents during airstrikes on their enclave at the Jili-Laram in the Tumbons areas of Lake Chad Basin. The Nigerian Air Force Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Olushola Akimboyewa, made the revelation in a statement issued in Abuja. Akimboyewa said the Nigerian Air Force's aircraft carried out the operation on November 23rd at a strategic location identified through meticulous intelligence efforts. The head of civil service of the Federation, Didi Walsin-Jack, says the investigation launched by the federal government to identify civil servants still receiving salaries after relocating abroad is ongoing. Walsin-Jack made the statement at an event in Abuja marking her 100 days in office and a review of her tenure in the civil service. While denying claims that the process has been abandoned, the head of service stressed that the government remains committed to ensuring those who have moved abroad in search of better opportunities are no longer benefiting from the system. This comes 5 months after President Bola Tinubu ordered that civil servants who continue to receive government salaries after relocating abroad must refund their money. The First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has called for urgent collective action to combat gender-based violence as the country joins the global community to commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. The First Lady, in a statement, described gender-based violence as one of the most pervasive human rights violations, affecting nearly 1 in 3 women worldwide. She emphasized the need for collective action across all sectors of the society, urging for a timely prosecution of perpetrators and increased support for victims and survivors. The Director General of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Dr. Temitope Ilori, says no fewer than 1.6 million out of the 2 million people living with HIV in Nigeria are currently receiving treatment. Ilori made this declaration at a press conference in Abuja ahead of the 2024 World AIDS Day. Ilori explained that this year's commemoration would place special emphasis on stopping AIDS amongst children and raising awareness about the sustainability and ownership of the HIV response. The Lagos State government has commended the Supreme Court's decision over lottery regulations in Nigeria. The state government, in a statement by the Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Gbenga Omotosho, said the judgment remains a historic victory for the rule of law, federalism, and the constitutional rights of states. Omotosho said the Supreme Court's decision is a significant affirmation that the regulation of lotteries and gaming is a residual matter falling squarely within the purview of state governments. He added that the judgment reinforces the principles of true federalism, empowering states to chart their path for effective regulation. In a landmark move to boost tourism and hospitality industry, Imo State government has signed a memorandum of understanding with Hilton Group with the aim of repositioning the state as a destination. The police operatives in Katsina State have successfully rescued 14 passengers from kidnapping by bandits in Danaru village in Magama, Jibia local government area. The police spokesperson of the command, ASP Abubakar Aliyu, stated this in a statement. He said the incident occurred on Sunday, explaining further that suspected armed bandits attacked two commercial vehicles on the road with the intent of abducting the occupants. Aliyu, however, revealed that two rescued victims suffered gunshot injuries and were rushed to the hospital for immediate medical attention, adding that efforts were ongoing to apprehend the fleeing suspect as the investigation proceeds. Troops of Sector 3 under the Multinational Joint Task Force have successfully executed a decisive operation against Boko Haram and Islamic State in West African Province, terrorists in Kukawa and Mongono local government areas of Borno State. The operation, which resulted in the elimination of several terrorists and the recovery of critical assets, took place in northern Borno. Mongono is located about 137.9 kilometers from Maiduguri, while Kukawa lies 187.3 kilometers away. The Chief Military Information Officer at the Multinational Joint Task Force headquarters in Njanama, Chad, Lieutenant Colonel Olani Osoba, detailed the success of the mission. In a related development, the Northeast Chairman of Hunters and Vigilantes, Malam Yohana, and his team thwarted a terrorist attack in the Biro village in Biu local government area as the terrorists retreated upon sighting the patrol vehicle of the Hunters and Vigilantes, who responded promptly to a distress call from the community. Nigerians have expressed concern over the weight gain pap for babies being sold by a TikTok user, urging the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, to probe the product. The controversy began after some X.com users raised alarms about the safety of the product, which is marketed as an organic solution to help babies gain weight. In a post on X.com, popular Nigerian health influencer Dr. Chinonso Egbema, better known as Aproko Doctor, urged NAFDAC to take immediate action. Kaduna State Police Command says it has arrested no fewer than 523 suspects for various criminal offenses across the state between October and November 2024. The Commissioner of Police, Ibrahim Abdullahi, disclosed this during a press briefing at the command's headquarters in the state capital. Abdullahi stated that the arrests were made for crimes including kidnapping, cattle rustling, phone snatching, and rape. He also revealed that several arms and ammunition were recovered, including 5 AK-47 rifles, 2 pistols, and 1 submachine gun. Highlighting the command's achievement, he said 102 kidnapped victims were rescued during recent operations. You're watching Global AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from Nigeria's capital. When AM News returns, National Agricultural Development Fund champions agri-tech skills to boost food security and youth empowerment. Details of this, as well as foreign and sports stories, coming right after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from the break. In business, Nigeria's economy has recorded a 3.46% year-on-year growth in gross domestic product during the third quarter of 2024. This was revealed in a latest GDP report from the National Bureau of Statistics. The Bureau says the growth represents an improvement over the 2.54% recorded in the same period of 2023, and a slight rise from 3.19% in the preceding quarter, noting that the growth was largely driven by the oil sector, as well as continued expansion of the non-oil activities, particularly services and agriculture. The National Agricultural Development Fund has called for a stronger emphasis on skills acquisition in the agri-tech sector to enhance agricultural productivity and create employment opportunities for Nigerian youths. Speaking at a stakeholders roundtable on Nigerian youth development organized by the Sir Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation in Abuja, NAD Executive Secretary Mohammed Ibrahim underscored the importance of merging agricultural knowledge with emerging technologies to prepare the youth for the future workforce and address food security challenges. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, has raised the alarm over the state of debt across the continent, revealing that 40% of African nations are either in debt distress or at high risk. Speaking at the ongoing 2024 African Economic Conference in Botswana, Hannah Mosi, Deputy Executive Secretary and Chief Economist at the ECA, noted that most of these nations are locating more resources to debt interest payment than to critical development sector. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has insisted that from January 2025, the Nigerian government will not approve any international airlines flight schedules who have not engaged local carrier services for their outbound flights. Keyamo disclosed this in an interview, explaining that the move was to ramp up the aviation sector to meet up with President Bola Tinubu's $1 trillion economy. His comment comes amid controversy over his directive on October 15, 2024, that foreign airlines should patronize local carriers for outbound flights. Keyamo also said the country will retain close to $1 billion in annual revenue for outbound meals by foreign airlines if the directive is implemented. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Henneke Lukubiri, alongside industry leaders and the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL, Mele Kyari, are set to discuss advancing Nigerian content implementation and addressing industry challenges and capitalizing on emerging opportunities at the 2024 Practical Nigerian Content Forum. The four-day event, scheduled for December 2nd to 5th, 2024, at the Nigerian Content Tower in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, is expected to attract over 750 delegates, including 50 industry experts, policymakers, and regulators from across the globe. The event will include the unveiling of the new contracting cycle guidelines by the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board to drive investment and innovation in the country's oil and gas sector. On the foreign scene, United States Senator Lindsey Graham has threatened to impose sanctions on allied nations like Canada, Britain, Germany, and France if they enforce the International Criminal Court (ICC) arrest warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. These warrants were issued about alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. Graham's statement was made in response to the ICC's decision and reflects a strong stance against supporting the court's actions. Israel's military offensive on Gaza, launched after a cross-border attack by Hamas in October, has resulted in over 44,000 deaths, mostly women and children, and left more than 104,000 injured. Defense ministers from Germany, France, Poland, Italy, and the UK are set to meet in Berlin to discuss measures to strengthen security and defense in Europe. Russia's targeting of Ukraine with a new medium-range missile thought to have implications for all of Europe is likely to play a major role during discussions. Donald Trump, set to be inaugurated on January 20th, has demanded that Europe invest significantly more money in its own security and is expected to cut military aid to Ukraine. Following recent approval from Washington, Ukraine has begun using US-made missiles and British Storm Shadow cruise missiles to target military sites in Russia. And jumping into the world of sport, Matteo Berrettini has produced a superb display to give Davis Cup holders Italy a 1-0 lead on the Netherlands in Sunday's final, defeating Botic van the Zandschulp 6-4, 6-2. The world number 35 edged the first set, but hit his peak in the second and left the Dutchman no chance in Malaga, winning in 76 minutes. Berrettini, who came to support Italy as they ended a 47 wait for the trophy in 2023 as he missed out with an ankle injury, has been crucial in their Davis Cup defense. The 28-year-old paired up with Sinner to help Italy triumph in the doubles decider against Argentina in the last 8 before winning his semi-final singles rubber against Thanasi Konakiakis. Barcelona are reportedly set to extend Robert Lewandowski's tenure at the club, potentially affecting their pursuit of star forwards Erling Haaland and Victor Gyökeres. The 36-year-old Polish striker current contract is due to expire next summer. Reports say the Catalan Giants are likely to activate a clause that would keep him at the club for an additional year, with discussions of extending his deal until 2027 also under consideration. Lewandowski has been in a sensational form this season, netting 20 goals in 18 appearances. And that's how we call it a wrap on the Global AM News. I am Anthony Momodu. Good morning.
One of the issues we're discussing on the program today, just to give you some heads up, will be the leadership challenge in Nigeria, whether it's political or other kinds of leadership. But of course, it all rises and falls on politics, whether we want to pretend about that or not. Recently, just a few days ago, by the way, the Archbishop, that is the Catholic Archbishop of Sokoto Diocese, talking about Bishop Matthew Kuka, talked about how the presidents in this country, including the immediate past president, talking about President Muhammadu Buhari and now the incumbent President Bola Tinubu, were never prepared for leadership. And then you're asking yourself, what were they doing the whole time they were campaigning, Ramsey? Because some of them, by the way, spent more than 1 year campaigning. Of course, there's the indication of interest, followed by the official announcement that they are going to be in the race, and then the campaigns begin, and then there is an election, and then a winner is announced. And then you say such a person was never prepared for leadership. Some of these people had been in the public space for upwards of 2-3 decades. Some of them have seen both sides of the coin, public life, private sector experience, and what have you. How then do you say such people were never prepared for leadership?
Well, sometimes we look at such statements from the both sides of the coin. Someone may be speaking ironically,
right,
based on what's on ground. There are some things. Sometimes someone will get married, and you begin to ask yourself, was this young man actually ready for marriage? When you begin to see some things,
but party on one day.
But in fact, the social media went agog
for him.
Because everything, it was the talk of town. Countdown, pre-wedding pics. Everything was ready. We are set. We are ready to walk down the aisle and all of that. Some people get ready they prepare for the wedding, but not for the marriage. So these are two different things. Some persons may tell you, I am right for this. I can do this. Not until you get in there, you begin to see lapses. And sometimes these lapses are not even things you see yourself, except somebody else tells you there are lapses, in some situations. So that statement, it's a big statement, and it's a questionable statement. You can question it. Why did I say so? Someone that has planned. It is one thing for you to say, well, this person is not ready for the leadership position. And it's another thing for you to say, well, this person is failing. These are two different things.
Right.
So let's call, I don't know. But then, anything, let's call black, black, let's call white, white. If it is not good, it is not good. If it is not it, it is not it. But then that statement sounds ironical for me. When you say these people are not ready, when somebody will tell you, come and tell you, it is my turn. When somebody that has been a kingmaker for a very long time emerges, then you say that person is not ready. No, I don't think 100% we can say people are not ready for leadership position in Nigeria. Though the statement was not specific. He wasn't specific to a particular leader. Yeah.
It was like an umbrella statement.
Maybe he has gone to the drawing board to do an assessment of what democracy is really all about.
Vis-a-vis what we have seen since 1999.
So by the time you get to the drawing board and you begin to ask questions, you begin to take cue from what is happening in other climes,
Right.
then you begin to ask questions. These people don't seem to be ready for leadership, or probably their ideology of leadership is different from what it is for
Right.
me. You know, then you begin to make some statements. Then you begin to, and before he said that, he must have sat down, you know, to do one or two research, you know, ask himself questions. Are these people, were they really ready, or what their aim is different from leadership? You know, a leader is a servant.
Right.
For you to be a leader,
You have to be a servant.
You have to be a servant first. But this is the aspect of leadership a lot of people don't know, especially our politicians. And when we talk about politicians, they are in different categories.
Just to bump in on you, I mean, you're making a lot of valid points. Now that you mentioned how that a leader must first of all be a servant, apparently you were making reference to exemplary leadership. All right. It reminds me of how we had a governor one time, Niger State governor, as it then was, talking about Babangida Aliyu, who would call himself with so much of pride the chief servant. All right. In other words, there are servants all over the state, but he was the chief servant. Well, we may say that is in theory, that's in principle, maybe not in practice for most people in most clients, but ideally that's where it should be. You can't have people that you lead, those you're supposed to provide leadership for, go to places you have not been, or to places you are not ready to go to. The people you lead should not take more risks than you are taking, or than you are expected to take. In other words, you are the chief risk taker. All right, and you don't complain, which is another thing of saying leadership in this country. There's a lot of complaining. A governor comes into office, you complain about the governor before you who had done 8 years and he has moved on with his life. The other governor you're complaining about was also complaining about the other governor before him.
And you remember I said something during the review,
Right.
that the major problem we have in this country is that there is no continuity. Well, as a matter of fact, when you get into an office, there's a shiving that we know to pick the song, and we will run with this, we won't run with this. But let us know, these are the things we would be running with to continue from where this person stops. But everybody, I'll tell you the truth, I've not seen, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to wrap up my head around it, to see the administration, whether state, in fact, from the council to the top. I have not seen anyone that will come to the office and don't complain. We inherit, okay, based on what we inherit.
Nobody's talking about the assets they inherited. Everybody's focusing on the liability. We met a debt of over 125 billion naira. The schools were dilapidated, healthcare system failing, and what have you. But nobody's talking about how that you made extra amount. No governor takes office in this country and tells us about what they met in the accounts. I mean, that's almost not a scene that we see here in this part of the world. Everybody is quick to talk about how that the previous governor was borrowing. Edo State, for example, now has set up a panel to probe immediate past Governor Godwin Obaseki. The same thing that Oshomole had done to probe former Governor Lucky Benedia when he took over office in November.
Alia did when he came.
Exactly, in November of 2008. So the question is, are we going to continue playing the blame game? Look, when you pick up a state, as it is in our client, for example, or you take over an organization, let's say a private organization, you should always know that that organization or that state was not in its best states as when you took it up, which means that Ramsey has done his bit. He has moved on to other things. He has left as a governor, as an MD, as a CEO. You are now in charge. Your role is to correct whatever Ramsey did not do and improve on whatever he had achieved while he was there as the chief executive. You don't keep complaining. In any case, at that point, you realize that the whole thing is not exactly the way you had thought it was or would be. The honorable and noble thing to do is to step aside. There's nothing wrong with that. You see, that's an element we're missing. I mean, even in the private sector, you took over an organization and you realize that something is wrong. Oh, you didn't know it was. I mean, you are not God. You can't know everything. So you just only realize, for example, that there's a weakness somewhere you are not so convinced you can fix even in 2 lifetimes. Rather than complain, because when you complain, what you do is you kill the morale of others.
That's it.
You just drain their energy, their enthusiasm, their drive. Everybody loses momentum. So when a governor comes out and says, "Well, we took over this state, it was a debt of over $500 billion," what you're doing is your commissioners and other members of your cabinet just feel there's no hope, because if Oga
That has become a trick in Nigeria.
Of course. Meanwhile,
that's an excuse.
other things are happening under the table.
That's an excuse. Okay, that's an excuse to take the people's eyes from you, so that at least you can make 8 plus 8, 88 instead of 16. You understand? So a lot of these people, when they come into office, the first thing is complain. But I'm waiting for one governor. I'm waiting for, there is one president that I'm waiting for. There is one House of Rep member, one senator that I'm looking for. That senator that will come to office and say, no, this thing is too bad for me to fix, so I don't want to take it. Someone else should come. That House of Rep member that will say, hey, what this person did, that governor that will say, no. In 2 years, I won't be able to fix this, whereas my target is fixing it in 1 year. Therefore, I'm stepping aside. I'm not taking this office.
Right.
I am waiting to see that. If not until we have somebody like that, it means no matter the complaint, no matter the lamentation, eyes are on you. You are a leader.
Yeah.
You took over this thing. It was, if it is that it was in its best state, then there was no need for you coming in the first place.
Exactly. In any case, Ramsey, you're complaining the whole time. I mean, you spend half of your time in office, your first 4 years at least, complaining. Yet by the second year of your first term, you're already agitating for a second term. I mean, think about that for a second. This is you complaining to us the whole time. You're lamenting, to use Ramsey's word. All right, second year into your first term of 4 years in office. Well, of course, you can't wait for the 4 years to cycle out so that you can run away. But then by the 8th month of the second year in your first term in office, you're already asking for votes. Your commissioners and other hallelujah boys around you are falling over themselves to secure the bag, so to speak, for Oga for the second term. All right, so let's stop lying to ourselves and do leadership squarely. We're taking a quick break now, and when we'll return on the program, it will be time to expand this conversation, because everything rises and falls on leadership. Well, out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses is what we're doing this morning. We are being joined by a third person, a gentleman who is going to weigh in on the conversation this morning via Zoom, live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, to help us find some perspectives and insights regarding how pivotal leadership is in driving the growth and development of a country. A public affairs analyst, Matthew Ali. We would like to say a big thank you to you, Matthew, for joining us this morning. My colleague here, Ramsey Enoch Agbo, and myself will just get you talking for the next 25 and 30 minutes.
Yeah, hello, good morning. Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me?
All right, let's put our first question on the road for you, Matthew. I was talking to Ramsey a while ago about a statement credited to the Catholic Archbishop of the Sokoto Diocese of the Catholic, in Nigeria, talking about Bishop Matthew Kukah, where he said that Nigerian presidents have never been ready for leadership. So I'm going to ask you this right from straight off my head. What exactly does it mean to be ready for an office? I mean, look at a man like President Bola Tinubu, for example. He spent 8 years turning the state of Lagos around. I mean, we knew, for example, what the IGR was, what the GDP of Lagos was before he took over on the 29th of May in 1999. And by the time he left office on the 29th of May in 2007, after 8 years, we saw what Lagos had become. That's what Fashola, former governor, spent 8 years building on. That's what Akinwumi Ambode spent 4 years building on. And that is what the gentleman there now talking about, Governor Jide Sanwo-Olu, is spending his 5th year building on. And then the man on top of all that says that I spent 20 years preparing for this role. How then is it valid to say that a man like President Bola Tinubu was not ready for leadership?
Can you hear me, please? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
All right. It's good to be back to continue the conversation we just started a while ago. We understand Matthew and Leo. So Matthew, you were making a point a while ago. Would you like to pick it up from there real quick, please?
Yes. Please, can you hear me now? Am I audible enough? Am I?
Yes, go ahead, please. By all means, we're hearing you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, the anchorman, for the show. And firstly, I think I have to tender a sincere apology for not being physically present at the studio. It's due to some meetings I need to attend to this morning. In response to your question, when we talk about leadership and successful leader, there are two major components that makes one ready for leadership. It's a combination of personal quality and professional competence. We're talking about personal quality and professional competence. This is being rooted deeply into understanding the narrative and the subject matter of even the demography of person or the entity you intend to lead. Bringing Nigeria as a case study. Before you can say somebody is ready to take leadership in Nigeria, there are some complexity. I believe the person should have a deep understanding of. One, the diversification of Nigeria as a nation, our regional dynamic, our history and politics. You see, these three parameters are key things that I believe anybody coming into leadership in Nigeria should be able to fine-tune and have a deep understanding of. With much reference to a reverse stakeholder, Bishop Kukah, I believe so much in his wisdom, and I believe so much in his assertions. But looking at it in the other way around, the incumbent leadership of the country, which is President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, from my own angle and perception, Emiloko in Yoruba language means it is my turn. And from all his presentation over time, he has made it clear to Nigeria that it has took him years, if not 20 years, to prepare for this day. And for someone to use that or to make such public assertion, I will say confidentially that actually he has undergone some level of training and preparedness for this moment. Now, Nigeria itself is still a developing nation, as we all know. So the leadership antecedent or the leadership trend in Nigeria has been highlighted by Bishop Kukah in this presentation on Sunday, highlight the trend and what he called a emergent leader from his presentation. But if you are looking at it from the other way around, we would say being a leader, I would call it as a destiny by God, not minding the means. Although we are not being spiritual here. So I will say for anybody to be ready for leadership in whichever aspect of leadership, professional quality and personal quality are two issues that the person should be able to have in understanding the dynamic of the nation or the states by a specification. So whatever assertion that Bishop Kukah has had over our past leaders in Nigeria, our past head of states, well, we can't really say, or personally, I can't really debate that with him, because as we all know, this is a democracy. Everybody seems to see things from different perspective and different view. So now, considering the antecedent of leadership in Nigeria, as during the preamble that was given earlier in this show, that most leaders come and they begin to blame the past leader for not being able to deliver. And they do this blaming system to cover up their own tracks and end up not delivering to the people. So that has been a trend in Nigeria. But the big question I always ask ourselves is, can we continue this way? Because as a nation or as a sovereign state, we must continue to elect people for leadership and appoint people for leadership. But we need to have what I call a change of mindset. It's only when we have a change of mindset towards leadership itself. By thinking leadership is not all about going what it will give me. The first question is, what do I have to put in? If only we all can have this change of mindset, I believe we are going to have the best leaders in the coming days. Thank you.
Let me ask you this before Ramsey jumps in. So, what exactly is missing in the leadership equation of Nigeria today? Because it appears for the most part, we pay maybe 85% attention to politics and politicking, especially as it has to do with elections. And then we pay, who knows, maybe something just around 15% to governance and providing leadership. Beyond the presidents we have had since 1999, for example, what we need to understand, because it's not enough to have 3 degrees in political science or in corporate governance or whatever it is. What is the element we need to put in place or appropriate to lead Nigeria out of its current state?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. You see, talking about the political equation of the nation, as more of a reference to my initial statement, one key thing that we Nigerians need to understand in leadership is, let's not see leadership role as what do I have to take from it. Unless we have that understanding, unless we have that change of mindset, we might begin to have a replica of whatever we think we are seeing now. In Nigeria, anybody coming into leadership role, even outside the political realm, believes, what do I have to take from it? You see, what leaders, Nelson Mandela, for example, of South Africa, these people, they came into leadership with a purpose of what they have to render to their people. But over time, and this that has had it in our nation today, that any person, let me not be very specific about young person this time around, have this belief that I am going into leadership to get this, not I am going into leadership to deliver this. And that has been the limitation that we have had in Nigerian leadership. Because if I am going with the mindset that I'm going to get something, I will do whatever it takes me to get that I so desired for. And in that process, I begin to make certain excuses and certain claims that do not uphold the integrity of the office in which I go. So first thing first, as a nation or as Nigerians, let's not just look at the current people leading. Let's look at Nigeria itself as an entity. Let's begin to have a change of mindset. Only when we have a change of mindset about leadership and the approach towards leadership, that is when I think we can be able to fight against this what I call a leadership failure that Nigeria has faced over time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. Let's we're still talking about the performances of leadership of leaders in the country, their level of preparedness because of the statement that came from the religious leader. Now, at what point can we say this leader came prepared? Because there are things that play out in our political system. You see a lot of people come into office and they come with the intention of, I need to do this first, I need to do this first. These are the first things first. Now, as it is, at what point can you ascertain that, obviously this leader came ready? I'm not talking about the pre-singing of party loyalists, okay? I'm not talking about the pre-singing of people from the same ethnicity, because it is right now. I think a lot of Nigerians have different languages and different beliefs and perceptions about leadership. So on your own part, At what time can you say, all right, this leader is on track?
Yes, thank you very much. You see, in every system, there is what they call the monitoring and evaluation. And even in governance and leadership, there is structure into it to evaluate. And in terms of leadership in Nigeria, we the citizens, we are the major evaluator of leadership in Nigeria. Now, talking about at what point can we say the leader come prepared? We have to look at the impact of his leadership on the people he's leading, vis-a-vis in terms of infrastructural development, education, social amenities, and the leadership programs rolled out. Now, looking at this very part, we'll begin to outline this in different perspectives. We can only say a man is ready for a fight only when he comes with all his arsenals ready to work, and they are working. And let's not forget that leaders are not only done by an individual, but the thing is, the failure of any system, of any leadership system, boils down to the number one person there. So now, if we are saying at what point can we evaluate a leader come prepared, we have to look at the impact of his leadership system on us, and that boils down to the arsenals the leader is using also. So I think these are key points we should use in evaluating all forms of leadership. Now, as an individual, I will say it again, we cannot get leadership right in Nigeria if we don't undergo what I call self-rebate, change of mindset about leadership. Because anybody vying for political leadership in Nigeria will always tell you he is born prepared. Some person will tell you even before he or she was born, he had this revelation that he will be a leader. So, but the question there is, what did he has to offer as a leader? And what mindset is he coming into leadership with? So unless we have been able to outline these critical aspects of it, we might always be asking, what are the evaluation mechanisms? What are those things that he has done that will make us credit the leader of being competent for the role he has been elected or appointed to? So if we are saying at what point, it boils down to the impact of the leadership on the citizenry. I think that is a very key aspect we should use. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ali, for that response. One more question, because if you're talking about leadership like this, criticism you can take away when it comes to leadership. And in this part of the world, when criticisms come, there is this counter-attack, whether the criticism is positive or not. Don't be surprised that some persons will be of the school of thought that probably this clergy has been maybe made to say this because he belongs to a particular political party, or throwing his wing behind someone, or probably because maybe the system is not favoring him, and that's what some persons may think. But now, criticism, especially constructive criticism, you can't take that away. So what is your thought concerning positive and constructive criticism, and how do you think that can shape the actions of these leaders to help them get things right, especially in a country like ours?
Yes, sir. You see, in reference to what I said initially, that there should be a monitoring and evaluation system, and we, the citizenry, we are the major evaluator of any leadership system in the nation. Now, with regards to the statement of Bishop Kukah, he is an elder statesman, he is a clergyman, he understands the dynamic of the system by virtue of his antecedents and his key involvement in the development of the nation. Now, for any leader to be well-groomed, to be successful, he should be able to be open. He should be open to criticism, especially constructive criticism. Now, as as a successful leader, you should be able to have feedbacks via consensus to review, and to restructure your programs. And I want us to be mindful of the fact that the system we operate in Nigeria is a democratic system that is open to every man to air his or her opinion about the affairs of the state. Now, criticism is a key aspect that should be upheld by every leader to evaluate and to rebuild the system they are operating. So I do not see the statement of Bishop Kukah as an antagonist or as an opposition. No, I see it as his own contribution to nation building. Permit me to say that, because the leaders now, they should be able to make reference to the statement of such a elder statesman to review their programs and to restructure the system in which they are operating for the betterment of all, and to have an effective Nigeria and a progressive Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. So let's quickly talk about role modeling, particularly for young people who are watching. I mean, young people, I'm sure when you were much younger, you probably had been told the same thing, or at least you had heard grown-ups talk about how that these young people are tomorrow's leaders, or leaders of tomorrow, as they're called. But that's tomorrow, as they say. I mean, they say today is the tomorrow we talked about yesterday, all right? Today is the tomorrow we talked about yesterday. Most of those young people have grown today now. You can't take away the place of role modeling. That is the need to have role models in leadership, for example. When you look at leaders today, I'm not just talking about those in politics, because, again, that is the narrowness of this conversation. Every time we have it, when we say leadership, everybody turns to governors and presidents and legislators and all of those within the sphere of politics. But let's talk about role modeling in leadership, whether it's in the public or in the private sector. Are we modeling a right for the generation of leaders coming from behind?
Talking about role modeling for leaders, I believe for any great leader or for any aspiring leader, you should be able to have somebody you are looking up to. But over time, in the Nigerian system, one of our limitations has been the mindset. I have a reason of hammering so much on our mindset as a nation, or as an individual in a nation. You see, if I am picking somebody as my role model, I should be able to understand the individual, his starting point, his present state, and his progress. And I should be able to streamline myself towards that. But over time, the system that we operate in Nigeria has made it very porous that any young person you see now want is a mentor, to be somebody that have access to manipulative public fund. That's what about the mindset. Not until we have this rebate, we have this individual rebate, our role modeling system in Nigeria will always produce people that might be doing worse than the former. So role modeling is a very key aspect for any individual, even not only in leadership, even in business and career. You should be able to have somebody you look up to, that you want to trace his or her step. But over time, the people that we seem to look up to has been able to alter the system in the negative way. And people looking up to them always tune their mind towards that. I want to make reference to something. During the tenure of the late former Minister for Communication, late Professor Dora Akunyele, she launched a project in Nigeria, they know that the Rebrand Nigerian Project. Then, as at that time, one of my assertions is Nigeria as a system does not need to be rebrand. Can't we launch a system known as Rebrand Nigerians? Let's begin to have a rethink. Let's begin to have a different mindset towards the system of leadership. even down to the religious sector also. Let's begin to have a rethink. Let's not look at what the system will always have to give us. Let the first question is, what do I have to give to the system? Not until we are able to have this debate, we might not be able to get this perfect leadership system we so crave for. It's more of a personal debate, a personal reassertion. Permit to say. So until we individually we are saying, okay, I want to put, what can I put in, not what I will take. Because we always seem to have people we are looking up to, people that are always having what they want to take, not what they want to put in. And that is why you have seen we seem to be grooming people that are doing more than the people that we think we are seeing now. So role modeling is a very key part of leadership in any aspect of life. But by as it may, we need to have a system that is very holistic. Only then we can begin to have mentors and mentees that are ready to change the narrative or that are ready to follow a trend. Thank you.
All right, Matthew, I would like to say a big thank you to you for making our time this Tuesday morning to join us here to discuss the importance of leadership and what the real concerns are. Again, we say thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll take another quick break now, but the talk about leadership never ends, and as is always the case, today just presents that opportunity for us to look at how this country is being led, whether in the public or private sector, and what those who have been saddled with this responsibility are doing in this regard. We'll talk more about it, and then there is the issue of borrowing and the debt profile of Nigeria. What exactly does it mean for this country? We'll talk to you about those when we return. All right, thank you everyone for staying with us here on Global Morning. So let's turn our attention to a second conversation this morning that focuses on the borrowing spree that Nigeria has been in for quite a number of years. Now, cast your mind back to sometime in 2016 when Nigeria was trapped in some sort of recession. And then Minister of Finance, talking about Kemi Adeosun, had said, look, Nigeria will have to borrow for the foreseeable future. And it is, well, some 8-9 years down the line, that has been the trajectory. Former President Muhammadu Buhari spent 8 years in office, borrowed, and gave reasons for all of the borrowing, including some $1 billion for, well, said to be for the purchase of arms to fight insurgency somewhere up in the northeast. Today is another administration in office, 2 years into this government. It has also been the same culture that has been sustained. For every request made to the National Assembly for borrowing, as expected, there's always a reason for that. Now, there's a certain $2.2 billion that's in front of the National Assembly, which you understand has also now been approved. Now, the National Assembly itself, populated largely by members of the APC, the ruling party, is now also becoming more than ever before concerned about this disturbing trend of borrowing. However, the Minister of Finance, who doubles as the coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, now says, look guys, you have to hold on. We can't borrow without your approval. Therefore, our borrowing is squarely based on the approvals that we get from the legislature. So we don't know for how long that back and forth will run. In the meantime, we are more concerned about the implication for the economy and how it affects the everyday Nigerian. Now, let's be clear. When a country borrows, ultimately it is the citizens of that country who are borrowing, because Nigerians will pay that debt. It's not President Bola Tinubu, it's not the federal government, it's not the APC, it is Nigerians who will pay that debt. Now, look at how bad it is. Even the IMF, I mean, an institution that is responsible for supporting nations financially, is now also complaining, now expressing very serious concerns about the borrowing that Nigeria has been trapped in. As of today, we spend a chunk of the revenue we make, particularly from the sale of crude, on servicing our debt. Some people say we are not even paying back. We're just servicing, we're just paying interests on the debt. So some economists have said that given where we are today, inflationary measure, the poor state of the naira against the US dollar, you look at things like the amount of crude, the volume of crude that we're able to produce per day, the dynamics around the international oil markets and what have you, it is very clear that it will take several decades, maybe 2-3 generations, before we're able to pay off these debts. One of the things we requested from the international community recently, I mean, at every chance we get, is to say, please, we are asking for debt forgiveness. Some people have said, well, Obasanjo did it back in the day, so why should that be a big deal if the government of President Bola Tinubu is doing the same? But look at the entire continent of Africa. It is one country after the other going cap in hand to the global west to ask for aid, to ask for grants, to ask for loan. And Nigeria seems to lead that pack right now. Time will fail us to go into details as to what the index is saying about where 54 nations on this continent are with regards to their borrowing culture. What exactly does it mean for Nigeria? We have been told that it will take 20 years of huge, humongous investment in dollars, billions of dollars, to fix infrastructure from end to end in Nigeria. There are federal road projects that started when Obasanjo was doing his first term in office, that is between 1999 and 2003. Some of those roads have not been completed, whether it is somewhere in the northeast, the northwest, the north central, down to the entire south of the country. Those roads have not been completed. Look at the Lagos-Benin road, for example. Several of them. If you travel by road, for example, between Abuja and Benin, you start having nightmare from Okene all the way to Ebuma. That's how bad it is. So how do we have these conversations about national development concerning critical issues when we're busy paying debts that we have been told by those who understand these issues better will not be cancelled until several decades. So I don't know how much you owe now, because some persons have tried to spread or distribute these debts amongst Nigerians. I need to find out how much I'm owing, but you can go and find out for yourself too. So you begin to put in place a proper repayment plan for yourself. So at the end of the day, who knows, maybe Ramsey can say, I've paid mine, you guys go take care of yours.
You know, one of the things a lot of people were saying when Nigeria were borrowing from China, someone made a statement and the person said, oh, wait, come on. A time will come that if
China will take over the country.
China will take over the country. And we're very surprised about that. But then let's get very serious right here, like we have always been. And Nigeria as it is right now, the rate at which we are borrowing is becoming, I don't want to use the word suspicious, but Nigerians are eager to know what for.
What's the rationale?
What's the rationale? What is it for? Do we have a debt somewhere that we are borrowing to settle, or we are borrowing debt on debt? You know, I was saying something during the first conversation, and I was talking about criticism, how it happens, because every little thing you say now is being attributed to something political. Now, the 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, in the person of
Atiku
Abubakar, cried out immediately. This loan was approved, by the Assembly. And one amazing thing is that this approval came under 48 hours. Who have sat? How many committees have been set up to approve such a big amount, a humongous amount of money? You know, these are some of the things we should be asking. If these monies are being borrowed and we are seeing infrastructure, you can go to the hospital and return, and you see even on the hospital, on the structure, let it be written, the money we borrowed from China, this is what it's been used for. Even if a part of it is being taken by some other person, whoever wants to do that. But Nigerians should see as something they can fall back to say, well, the money being borrowed, this is what it was used for. It would have been better. We were talking about our roads just now. A lot of debt traps. You know, our roads are not good. I refuse to laugh when you were talking about the governor that had to put a signpost to say, well, sorry, you need to bear this road. This is a federal government road.
Right.
It's not me, it's the federal government. You know, that's the level we've gotten to. That is how, I don't know, unserious some persons in governance have become. I call that not being serious.
It's quite a complicated conversation to have, Ramsey, for a number of reasons, all right? First off, you mentioned the Chinese loans just a while ago. Now, recall that it was Chibike Rotimi Amechi, who was Minister of Transportation under former President Muhammadu Buhari, when these loans, came in tranches. And at that point, they were essentially focused on the railway project, all right, which, of course, the Buhari government took credit for the most part. People have said, yes, it was revolutionary to have that sort of project, first of its kind, even though there was a political back and forth as to, well, it was former President Jonathan who started the project and all of that. But let's forget about credits and attribution. Let's talk about what has changed in the overall interest of Nigeria. So, when those loans started, the first thing the Senate had done at that time, I remember clearly, was to say, look, let's even see the contract, let's see the MOU between the Nigerian government and the Chinese authorities. And I also remember very clearly how that the former minister, Amechi, had come to the National Assembly to do a presentation. Now, there was a clause that was of very, very significant concern for legislators. Of course, that would be for any right-thinking Nigerian, which is the fact that when Nigeria defaults in terms of the repayments of that loan, certain actions could be taken. In fact, the Chinese government would be at liberty to take certain kinds of action. We've seen what the Chinese guys have done in certain countries. Let's not go into all of those.
Do you remember what happened in Ogun State?
Exactly, were seized abroad, all right? And that was a court order, the Ogun State case that Ramsey just referenced. All right. So what's the point now? The point is, who is responsible for all of these loans that were borrowed? Why are we not having the conversation around, well, we got 6 trillion, for example, in Naira terms, and we spent 3.5 trillion doing XYZ. We have 2.5 trillion left, and we have retired XYZ. We're not having that sort of conversation. You know, somebody has said long ago that one of the fundamental issues we must address as a country going forward is to say public officers should have less access to funding. In other words, you can't just have that latitude, that liberty to access funding as if it's a free for all, as if it's a bag of money in the center of wholesale markets. No, it shouldn't be like that.
And you do whatever you want to do with it.
Exactly, you get away with it. As of today, for example, the ICPC is saying to us that they are tracking some several billions in constituency projects to Kaduna State. Now, Kaduna State is not alone in that category, sadly. There are several other states across this country that are also within that frame, or states where reps and senators cannot account for funding that is supposed to be specific for projects that are constituency focused. So you go to the house of a rep member, you go to the house of a senator, you see tricycles, the ones we call keke here. You see motorcycles, you see grinding machines, you see tailoring machines, that's sewing machines. You see several items there that are supposedly, there's a minister in this government, for example, some of these items were found in his house. That was supposed to be for his he was a member of the House of Reps at the time. So how do we explain all of this and we say we are working for Nigeria?
Oh, yeah, sometimes you'll be forced, I don't know, you'll be forced to think, you can't call that greed. Because at the end of the day, what would they do with it?
The man who rides the tricycle, for example.
Some of them are even keeping. Don't be surprised that some
for election.
Yes,
for 2027
for campaign 2027 campaign. This is what is meant for the people. I do tell politicians and people who are vying for political offices. See, these things are not magic. You don't even need to struggle when it's time for election. When you've really paid your dues, the people are not fools. A constituency can come up and say, no, if it is not you, it must be you. Based on antecedents. But when you see someone struggling, trying to cover some things that they've done by maybe buying of votes, maybe giving people tricycle that was meant for them originally, and you want to make them believe you are doing them some form of favor, you need to see the way this tricycle, this sewing machine, these grinding machines are being celebrated when they are given to people. The people don't even know that these are things that they are entitled to.
And even more.
Even more. See, what we're saying is this. You are in that office. See, at least there is this adage that in my place, that a child that always go for message eats with dirty hands. You don't need to even wash your hands because the thing is readily available all the time because you are always the one going for this message. As a matter of fact, if you know that, yes, okay, for instance, we have like maybe 5 billion and you judiciously use 3 billion to do something, the people are seeing it.
Right.
Nobody will come and be running helter-skelter asking of the remaining 2 billion. Even though we know there is 2 billion remaining somewhere.
That nobody
is accounted for. But for the fact that these people are saying, see, one good thing about Nigerians is that Nigerians are not even asking for too much.
Right.
The basics, let's have the basics. Let the roads be good. Let's have security. We should be able to go to farm and be able to answer the name food basket of the nation.
In practical terms.
In practical terms.
Right.
We should have health facility. We are sick. We should have where we can run to get the necessary basic treatment, the first aid that we need. We just at least let's have these things. But by the time you get there and you're trying to cover one thing, cover another thing, tomorrow you are applying. I want to borrow this. I want to borrow this. I want to borrow this. What is this money being used for? That's what Nigerians are saying. It is simple. But now, this is where the problem is. Who is to ask? Who is to hold who accountable? When it is my brother that is there, it's my friend's friend that is there. And there is this sharing formula that some persons in some places apply that shut people's mouth up. Where the conscience is not there anymore. Not for all, but some persons, okay, in governance. When somebody is saying, well, you are saying something about, okay, the first 4 years probably you were trying to cover some things that your predecessor did. What about the remaining 4 years?
What are you going to do with this?
What are you going to do? Because it's obvious that after the first office, I don't know what is there. I don't know what they always forget there, that they want to go back the second time. But it's now, I think, like a ritual or something, tradition, that after the first term, there is this possibility that this person is going to go in the second term again. Okay? And they look at that term as the period to, gather enough, because that seems to be somehow like your last term, because the third term bid never saw the light of day. So what are we trying to say? We are not saying borrowing is bad, but let's know what this money is being borrowed is used for. There is no country, there is no economy of the world that have survived smoothly without borrowing at some point,
including the United States. In fact, the US is the most indebted country on earth as of today.
But then, this is something. I heard, I can't remember that country that borrowed and developed the country. And right now, that country is a country that a lot of people want to go to now for tourism. They don't even have much. They don't have oil. I think it's UAE also. They don't even have oil. They don't even have this basic. But the way they built the country, everybody want to travel there for tourism.
Again, Ramsey, it comes down to one thing for the most part, and that is leadership, right? So if you understand where you're going, it's easier to chart your course and be on the right path. Conversely, they say if you don't know where you're going, if you're not sure of your destination, every road leads to that place, because you're just going to be random about your approach to getting to that place, right? Singapore is an example that comes to mind readily, for example. I mean, that's a country where you would say they were in a bad place, in the real sense of the word bad. But that was in the 70s. Going into the 80s, they already knew where they were heading and what they would do with the next 4-5 decades.
Function of good leadership.
Yes. By today, the people of that country, which is even a nation state, as they say in international politics, right? Singapore has become an example, a shining example of what a country should look like. As of today, everybody feels safe. In fact, several American billionaires, those in tech in particular, have had to move their businesses to Singapore. In fact, one of the guys who started Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg at the point had to, as it were, relinquish his U.S. citizenship to say he was moving his business at that time, what about $50 billion to Singapore, right? Singapore had been in Nigeria to ask for help. I mean, the history is there, the records are there at the point. Singapore had been to Malaysia to ask for help at the point. But they realized that this is not going to cut it for us as a people. So they had to chart their own course. It worked for them. It paid off. Nobody's talking about democracy in Singapore. People are talking about expectancy, life expectancy. I mean, look at the HDI, the Human Development Index, from Asia to Europe to South America to North America to Middle East to Africa. Nigeria is doing an average of 54, 56 life expectancy. Places like Singapore, they do like 74. You have countries like, I mean, the Scandinavia, like Singapore, I mean, like Finland, like Sweden, and so on and so forth. They are doing, Denmark, they are doing close to 82, 84. So what's the difference? The difference is the leadership over time. Of course, it doesn't happen at the snap of fingers. It's not instant noodles. It's not Nollywood scripts. But you must be sure where you want to be in the next 50 years, in the next 100 years. That reminds me, in 2020, for example, immediate past governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, he unveiled what he called the 30-year plan. A lot of people in the state were not comfortable with it because they were asking, I mean, you are going to live here before the end of 2024. How then are you selling us a 30-year plan? So what I want to hear is maybe 6-month plan, or 1-year plan, maximum 2-year plan. So don't be telling us 30-year plan. But that plan was going to die on arrival, not because what the man was doing at the time was wrong. Like you said, there won't be continuity. So will the next governor even look at that document? Will he look at the concept notes? Will he look at the basics of what the governor, as it then was trying to advance? So until we see the big picture, we won't be able to put the dots together as a country. That's the problem we have to deal with today.
That's it. That's the problem. Because if a governor is coming in, the governor is coming in with his own crew.
Right.
okay, not minding whether or not the people that were there before, there are some persons to leave. Look at what is happening in River State now. My boys have to be there. No, your boys can be here. My own boys have to be here. And all of that. We have a lot of problems. So these things are workable. If we have a change of mentality, if we have a change of ideology, and it takes one man or a few persons to do this change is possible, because Nigeria is a great nation. If it, see, like the countries, Singapore, I don't think they have up to what we have, as it has to do with natural resources. Because in Nigeria, as it were, there are some resources that have not even been discovered. Some are discovered but have not really been explored. We have all of these things readily available. So what's the problem? Leadership. And that's why we started by saying, except you come with a mentality that leadership is servanthood, or else you come with that stick and biro approach. You know what it means?
Well, I probably have an idea about the stick, but the biro, maybe I need a master class on that.
In fact, the biro is what does the manipulation. You know, that's why you say what we are hearing is what is on paper is different from what you always hear people say things like what we have on paper, okay, is different from what we have in reality.
Right.
That is where the biro plays out. So until we begin to have a very good, intentional leaders at all levels. You know, in Nigeria, when you talk about leaders, people's mind go to the presidency. That's not it. The problem starts from the grassroots.
Right.
The grassroots, the councillors, the ward leaders. Do you know that majority of these things that happens, it is not the leaders that do these things themselves. People at the grassroots are being used to perpetrate these acts, to get these people up there. You know, so until we begin to get a very smooth and clean, pure, crystal sanitization of our mental state, we may not be able to get these things right. Because like you always said, everything starts and ends with leadership.
Right. Well, there's no better way to put it. Nigeria has a lot of work to do, quite frankly, whether it's in health or in education. I mean, the basics of life, as we know it. Look at what India has done with tech, for example. Now, you can't talk about tech on earth today and not reckon with a country like India. You don't need to like them. You just need to appreciate the facts on the ground, all right? The government of India in the last 2 decades in particular has been very intensive and intentional about sending some of its best minds to Ivy League schools across the US, and they come back home. Now note that they come back home to replicate that level, that sophistication of knowledge they've acquired across US and Canada, even to the UK. But in Nigeria, are we making that investment? What are we saying to ourselves, for example, let's say the Ministry of Education on behalf of the federal government to say, in the next 25 years, these are planned for young graduates in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Now that's the future. But whether we're ready to have the conversation, whether we have the balls, the courage to push that frontier of our national development is probably a conversation that Ramsey and I will have on a different day. Incidentally, that's what we have for you on the program today. We can't say thank you enough for joining us to just have this discussion. We'll join you again tomorrow, but it will be a different team altogether. From Ramsey and we will say we're grateful. Have a great day ahead of you.
Tools from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.